You said the wrong thing. Not because you're a bad person, not because you lack intelligence. You said the wrong thing because in that moment, the anxiety got there first. You know exactly what that feels like. The conversation you replayed for 3 days. The job interview where your voice got tight and your answers came out wrong. The date that felt like an interrogation you were losing. The meeting where you had the right idea, but the words died somewhere between your chest and your mouth. You walked away thinking, why can't I just be normal around people? Here's what nobody told you. That wasn't a communication problem. That was a nervous system problem. And there is a massive difference. Every day you are broadcasting a signal. Not with your words. Before your words. The way your shoulders tighten when you feel judged. The way your laugh goes up half an octave when you're nervous. The way you talk faster when you want someone to like you. The way you go quiet when you're afraid of taking up too much space. People feel all of it. They can't name it. They won't tell you. But it changes how they respond to you. In every room, every conversation, every interaction you've had this week. This is the real psychology of attraction. Not tips, not hacks, not a list of things to say. It's what you're transmitting before you open your mouth. And here's the hard truth most people spend their entire lives avoiding. You cannot fix what's happening outside until you fix what's happening inside. Not your wardrobe, not your vocabulary, not your confidence pose in the mirror before a big meeting. The inside, the nervous system, the emotional patterns running on autopilot. The ones that were wired in long before you had any say in the matter. That's what this audiobook is about. In the next 60 minutes, you're going to learn something most people never do. Not how to perform better, how to need less. Chapter by chapter, you're going to stop leaking anxiety before you even speak. You're going to build the pause, that 5-second gap, where most people give their power away and don't even realize it. You're going to develop confidence that doesn't collapse the moment someone looks at you wrong. And you're going to train the kind of calm that makes you the most grounded person in any room. Not because you're trying, but because you've built it. 8 chapters, 1 mission. Stop performing. Start becoming. Not everyone finishes a 60-minute audiobook. Most people tap out around minute 12. They get distracted. They switch to something easier. They save it for later, and later never comes. But you're still here. That means something. It means you're done with surface-level fixes. You want the real thing, the version of yourself that walks into a room and doesn't need the room to validate it. That version exists. It's not far from where you are right now. And it starts with one decision: to stop reacting to your life and start leading it. You don't become magnetic by doing more. You become magnetic by mastering what's already inside you. Stay locked in. Let's go. Before we start, one quick thing. Right now, you could be sitting in traffic in Los Angeles, walking through a park in Austin, finishing a late shift in Miami, or lying in bed in New York at midnight wondering why your life feels smaller than it should. Wherever you are, drop a comment and tell me your city. Every time I see those comments pour in. Denver, Chicago, Houston, Seattle. It hits me every single time. Thousands of people. Different cities, different stories. Same hunger to grow. You're not alone in this. Tell me where you're watching from, then let's build something real. Chapter 1. See what's actually driving people away. You can't fix what you can't see. And that's exactly the problem. Most people spend years trying to get better at connecting with others. They read the books. They watch the videos. They practice their handshake and their eye contact and their opening lines. And then they walk into the room. And it still doesn't work. Not in the way they wanted. Not in the way they imagined. So they blame the room. They blame the people in it. They blame the timing, the circumstances, the fact that they're introverted or tired or just not good at this. But here's what's actually happening. They're fixing the wrong thing. Think about the last time you walked into a social situation already braced for something. Maybe a first date, maybe a party where you barely knew anyone, maybe a job interview, or a conversation with someone you had unresolved tension with. You walked in already managing yourself, already checking. Am I coming across okay? Do I sound natural? Are they reading me right? You felt it, that quiet, low-grade armor you put on. And other people felt it too. Not consciously, they couldn't name it, but somewhere in the first 30 seconds, their nervous system picked up yours. Here's where the science gets uncomfortable. Princeton psychologists Janine Willis and Alexander Todorov published a study in Psychological Science showing that people form their first impression of a stranger in as little as 1/10 of a second. Not 10 seconds, not 3, 1/10. A fraction of time so small you haven't even opened your mouth yet. And what the researchers found was that these snap judgments about trustworthiness, competence, likability were remarkably consistent even when people were given far more time to look. In other words, the first read sticks, and it happens before you say a word. So what is the brain actually reading in that fraction of a second? Not your credentials, not your outfit, not your rehearsed opener. It's reading your body. The slight tension in your jaw, the speed of your breath, the way your eyes move when you're unsure. Scanning, checking, monitoring. Whether you seem settled or held together. Signals you don't even know you're sending, processed in the parts of the brain that predate language, making a quiet judgment almost instantly. Safe or not, open or closed, worth moving toward or not. You cannot talk your way past that judgment. You have to change what's underneath it. This is what I call emotional leakage. And it is the single most overlooked reason why some people connect easily and others don't. Emotional leakage is the gap between who you're trying to be and what your body is actually broadcasting. You want to come across as confident, but your nervous system is still running the anxiety from 3 hours ago. You want to seem relaxed, but you're monitoring their face for approval every 15 seconds without realizing it. You want to be present, but your mind is 2 conversations ahead, already rehearsing, already bracing for how this might go wrong. The gap between what you intend to project and what you're actually transmitting, that's where magnetism dies. And the brutal part is this: most people have never once stopped to audit it. They've spent years working on what they say, almost no time on what they're silently emitting before they open their mouth. The words you choose account for a surprisingly small fraction of how people emotionally experience you. The way your body carries itself, your pacing, your tension, your breath, the quality of your attention, does most of the work long before language enters the picture. Here's what people are actually picking up when they first meet you. Your breath, your jaw, your eyes, whether they're soft or scanning. The speed of your movements, whether your body feels settled or braced. These are signals processed below conscious awareness, in neural systems far older and faster than rational thought. You cannot talk your way past that. You have to change what's underneath. And that starts with one thing. You cannot control what you cannot first observe. That's the whole principle of this chapter. Not fix, not improve, observe. Because awareness isn't the end point, but it is the only door in. You cannot train the pause if you don't know you're reacting. You cannot regulate a signal you've never noticed yourself sending. You can't change a pattern you won't look at directly. So here's what you're going to do. Starting tonight. For the next 3 days, you're going to run a simple exercise called a leak audit. 3 days, 3 minutes each evening, that's all. At the end of each day, you replay 3 interactions, one that went well, one that felt flat, one that felt off. For each one, you ask yourself one question. Not what were you thinking? What were you feeling in your body walking in? Tight or loose, braced or open, present or already somewhere else? Managing some version of yourself you were trying to present. You're looking for your tells. Everyone has them. The person who talks faster when they want to be liked. The person who gets quieter when they feel judged. The person who laughs at the wrong moment because silence feels dangerous. The person who over-explains, circles back, adds qualifiers, because somewhere underneath they're afraid of being misunderstood. Find your tell, then name it. Not, I was nervous. That's too vague. Get specific. I was monitoring for rejection. I was performing instead of just being there. I was managing how I came across instead of actually listening. The more precisely you name it, the less power it has. The brain cannot simultaneously observe a pattern and run it on autopilot. Observation interrupts the loop. Do it tonight. 3 minutes. That's the whole assignment. You'll be surprised what you find. And more importantly, you'll start to see the signal you've been sending without knowing it. The one that, once you see it clearly, you can actually change. That awareness, that honest, unflinching look at what you're actually emitting, that's where magnetic people start. Not with better technique, with better self-knowledge. Name it before it names you. In Chapter 2, we take the next step, because awareness alone changes nothing if you still lose the gap between feeling and response. That 5-second window where everything is either won or lost. That's exactly where we're going next. Chapter 2. Train the pause. Something happens. Maybe it's a text message that comes in wrong. Maybe it's a comment from a coworker that lands sideways. Maybe it's your partner saying something in a tone that immediately puts you on edge, and before you've even finished reading or hearing it, you're already somewhere else. Already reacting, already composing a response, or shutting down, or going cold. The moment passed in under 2 seconds. And in those 2 seconds you gave something away. Not your opinion, not your point of view, something more valuable than that. You gave away your state. This is the thing nobody warns you about when it comes to emotional control. People imagine it means being stoic, unfeeling, detached. They picture someone who never reacts, never gets affected, walks through the world like nothing can touch them. That's not what this is. That's not even the goal. The goal is the pause. The small, almost invisible gap between stimulus and response. That's where everything lives. Your relationships, your reputation, how people feel in your presence. Whether they trust you, respect you, or quietly learn to tiptoe around you. All of it is shaped by what you do in that gap. Most people don't know they have a gap. They experience something and they react, like a reflex, like something mechanical inside them just fires. And it's not because they're weak, it's because they've never been taught that the gap exists. Never been shown that the pause is a skill. Never trained it like a muscle. There's an idea, one that Viktor Frankl embodied so completely during his years in Nazi concentration camps that it became the cornerstone of his entire psychology. That between what happens to you and how you respond to it, there is a space. And in that space lives your freedom. Frankl didn't just write about this idea. He lived it in conditions most of us cannot imagine. He lost almost everything. And he wrote that the one thing that could never be taken from him was his ability to choose how he responded to what was happening around him. That gap, that pause, the space between stimulus and response. If that gap was worth protecting in those circumstances, it's worth building in yours. Here's a scenario you've probably lived. You're in a conversation, maybe at work, maybe at home, and someone says something that hits a nerve. It might be criticism. It might be dismissal. It might be something small that somehow carries a charge you weren't expecting. And in that moment, you feel it. That heat in your chest, that tightening in your throat. Your brain has already started moving. And here's what most people do. They go with it. They say something sharp back, or they go quiet in a way that clearly communicates they're not okay. Or they spend the next 3 hours replaying the conversation in their heads instead of being present in their actual life. The emotion arrived. They obeyed it. That's the default. And the default is costing you more than you realize. Neuroscientist and psychologist Daniel Goleman, in his research on emotional intelligence, describes what happens in those moments as an amygdala hijack. The amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, fires a stress response before the prefrontal cortex, the rational decision-making part of your brain, even gets the signal. Your emotional brain reacts before your thinking brain has a chance to weigh in. It happens in milliseconds. And once that hijack is underway, it takes most people roughly 20 minutes for their stress hormones to return to baseline. 20 minutes of compromised judgment, compromised communication, compromised presence. Every time you react from that charged place, you're training yourself to keep doing it. The neural pathway deepens, the reflex gets faster, and other people start to learn that your state is easily influenced, that a single comment can shift your whole energy. That is the opposite of magnetic. That is the signal that tells people, this person can't hold themselves steady under pressure. But here's what's also true. The pause is trainable, not just manageable when things are calm, actually trainable, the same way you'd build any physical skill. Neuroscience now shows that with consistent practice, you can physically rewire the pathways involved in emotional response, gradually widening that gap between trigger and reaction until the pause becomes the default rather than the exception. The brain you have today is not the brain you're stuck with. It changes based on what you repeatedly do with it. Respond from your values, not your emotions. The difference between those two words, reacting and responding, is the difference between who you are in your worst moments and who you want to be at your best. So here's how you train it. The first thing you're going to start doing is the 5-second hold. Every time you feel a charged emotion start to rise, irritation, defensiveness, anxiety, that sudden urge to explain yourself or fire something back, you hold for 5 seconds before you do anything. You don't suppress the feeling. You don't pretend it isn't there. You let it rise, and you simply don't act on it for 5 seconds. 5 seconds sounds small. It isn't. In those 5 seconds, the prefrontal cortex has a chance to come back online. The amygdala fired. The heat came up. And now, in the pause, you have a choice. You didn't have a choice before. You didn't even know there was one. But now you do. The second practice is box breathing, and it's specifically for moments of real intensity. Someone confronts you. A conversation escalates. You feel yourself losing ground. 4 counts, inhale. Hold for 4. Exhale for 4. Hold again for 4. 1. Cycle. The science behind this is straightforward. Slow, controlled breathing directly activates the vagus nerve, the main pathway of your parasympathetic nervous system, the system responsible for calming your body down after a stress response. Multiple peer-reviewed studies confirm that paced, slow breathing measurably reduces physiological arousal and shifts the body away from the threat response. Your biology works in your favor once you know how to use it. The third thing is the simplest. Before you respond to anything with a charge, a difficult email, a loaded question, a situation where you can feel your energy spiking, ask yourself one question. Is this worth my state? Not is this worth addressing? Is it worth the state it would cost me to react right now? Most of the time, the answer is no. The thing that feels urgent in the moment becomes irrelevant by tomorrow. The pause lets you see that. The reaction doesn't. Do these 3 things. Not perfectly, consistently. You'll start to notice something shift, not just in how you feel, but in how people respond to you. Because when you stop being easy to destabilize, people start treating you differently. They sense the steadiness. They trust it. They want to be around it, the same way people are drawn to calm water after a storm. You become the person in the room who doesn't break. That steadiness is magnetic. And it doesn't come from feeling nothing. It comes from building the pause large enough to choose. In Chapter 3, we go deeper into presence, because once you can hold your state, the next question is where to put your attention. That's where real connection happens. Chapter 3, be here, completely. There's a version of you that shows up to conversations physically but isn't actually there. You know this version. Maybe you've been on the other side of it. Sitting across from someone who's technically present, technically responsive, but you can feel they're somewhere else. Their eyes are with you, but their mind is already 3 steps ahead, composing their next sentence, processing something unrelated, half listening while the other half manages whatever else is running in the background. You finish talking. They respond. And something about it lands just slightly off. Like the reply came from a person who heard your words, but didn't really receive them. That's not presence, that's attendance. And most people, without realizing it, have spent years mastering attendance while losing presence entirely. Here's what's strange about this. We live in a time when being heard has never been harder to find. Everyone is distracted. Everyone is multitasking. Everyone has a device in their pocket, constantly pulling their attention in 17 different directions. And because of that, because genuine attention has become so rare, the person who actually gives it becomes extraordinary. Not because they're charming, not because they have the right things to say, simply because they're fully there. That quality, full, unhurried, undivided attention, is one of the most magnetic things a human being can offer another human being. And almost no one is doing it. Think about the last time someone made you feel truly heard. Not just listened to, but heard. Where you could feel that the person across from you was completely with you, not formulating a response while you were still speaking, not distracted by their phone, not performing attention while their thoughts were elsewhere. Just there, fully. How did that feel? Most people, when they think back on it, remember it clearly, because it's rare enough to stand out. It changed something in how you felt about that person. It created a pull toward them that no amount of clever conversation could manufacture. That's what presence does. And the reason so few people have it isn't because it's difficult to understand. It's because it requires something that modern life has systematically trained us to avoid. It requires you to stop managing. Here's what happens in most social situations, especially ones that carry any weight. A first meeting, an important conversation, something where you care about the outcome. You show up managing. Managing how you come across. Managing what they might be thinking. Managing the impressions you're leaving. The words you're choosing. The signals you're sending. You're running a background process the entire time. How am I doing? And that background process is exactly what kills presence. Because you cannot be fully in a conversation and simultaneously be evaluating yourself from the outside. Those two things cannot happen at the same time. When you're monitoring, you're not present. When you're performing, you're not connecting. And people feel that split, even when they can't name it, in the same way they feel the difference between sunlight and fluorescent light. Something is off. The warmth isn't quite there. Real presence means dropping the monitoring. It means letting the conversation be what it is, without needing to manage every signal you're putting out. It means trusting that who you are, when you're not performing who you are, is enough. That's a harder thing than it sounds. Especially if you've spent years using management as a form of protection. But here's the practical reality. The moment you stop managing and start actually listening, something shifts in the other person too. They feel it. Their shoulders drop slightly. They open up. They say things they weren't planning to say, because they're responding to the quality of your attention. And your attention, when it's genuinely full, creates a kind of safety that almost nothing else can. So how do you actually build this? The first practice is the one-breath reset. Before any conversation that matters, before you walk into a meeting, before you pick up the phone, before you sit down with someone you care about, you take one full slow breath. Inhale completely. Exhale completely. In that single breath, you make a deliberate choice. I'm here now, not in the last conversation, not in whatever is waiting for me after this. Here. It takes 4 seconds. It costs nothing. And it creates a genuine shift in your physiological state that the other person will register before you've said a single word. The second practice is simple and brutal in equal measure. The phone goes away. Not face down on the table. Not in your lap. Away. Out of sight. Research consistently shows that the mere presence of a smartphone on a table, even if it's turned off, even if neither person touches it, measurably reduces the quality of conversation, the depth of connection, and how much each person feels the other is truly engaged. The device doesn't have to be active to pull attention. Its presence alone signals that something else might be more important than the person in front of you. Put it away. Not as a rule, as a statement about what you value. The third practice is what I call the last sentence check. Every minute or so during a conversation, not obsessively, just periodically, ask yourself, What was the last thing they said? Can you repeat it back, word for word? If you can't, you've drifted. Your body was there. Your mind went somewhere else. Notice it. Come back. No judgment. Just return. The ability to catch the drift and come back quickly and cleanly is itself the skill. You're not trying to never drift. You're training the muscle of return. These three things together, the breath before, the phone away, the last sentence check, build a habit of presence that compounds over time. The people in your life will feel the difference. They may not be able to articulate what changed. They'll just find themselves wanting to talk to you more, wanting to be around you more, trusting you with things they don't tell most people, because you became someone who actually shows up, not just in body, in full. That's the foundation of everything that follows in this audiobook. You cannot be magnetic from a distance. Magnetism requires contact, real contact, the kind that only happens when two people are genuinely present with each other, not performing at each other from across the gap of their own internal monitoring. Be here, completely. It's rarer than you think. And in Chapter 4, we go to a place most people avoid entirely. The moment where someone tries to take your energy and you decide, calmly and firmly, that they can't have it. Chapter 4, Hold Your Ground. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that nobody talks about. It's not the exhaustion from working too hard or sleeping too little. It's the exhaustion that comes from spending your days saying yes when you mean no, from giving your time to people who drain you, from softening yourself, shrinking yourself, bending yourself into whatever shape a situation seems to require so that everyone around you stays comfortable while you slowly disappear. You know this feeling. Maybe you're living it right now, the meeting that ran 2 hours over because you didn't say anything, the friend who calls only when they need something and you pick up every time, the colleague who takes credit for your work and you let it go because confrontation feels worse than being invisible. The habit of explaining yourself over and over to people who weren't actually asking for an explanation. This is what a life without boundaries looks like from the inside. Not dramatic, not explosive, just a slow, steady leak of energy with no one filling it back up. And here's the thing Ahmad people get backwards. They think boundaries push people away. They think that saying no, clearly, calmly, without a paragraph of justification, will damage their relationships, reduce their likability, make them seem cold or difficult or hard to be around. So they keep the peace, they keep giving, they keep bending, and then they wonder why people stop respecting them. The counterintuitive truth is this. People are not drawn to those who give everything. People are drawn to those who know what they're worth and act accordingly. The person who can say no, simply, without apology, without collapsing under the weight of the other person's disappointment, is the person who commands attention. Because that kind of clarity signals something rare. It signals that this person knows who they are, that they have standards, that their yes actually means something because their no is real. Boundaries aren't walls. They're the shape of your integrity. And integrity is what magnetism is actually built on. Think about the people you genuinely respect. Not just like respect. The ones whose opinion matters to you, whose presence carries weight. Chances are they are people who hold their ground. They don't people please. They don't over-explain. They don't need the room's approval before they'll take a position. They have an ease about them that comes not from having everything figured out, but from being completely clear on what they will and won't accept. That ease is not a personality trait. It's a practice. So here is what building it actually looks like. The first thing to understand is why boundaries are so hard to hold. It's not weakness, it's wiring. Most of us learned very early, in families, in schools, in social groups, that keeping others comfortable was safer than holding our own line. That disapproval was dangerous. That making someone unhappy, even briefly, had consequences worth avoiding. Those lessons were useful once. They protected us in environments where we genuinely couldn't afford to push back. But you're not in those environments anymore. And the strategy that protected you then is costing you now. The The first practice is identifying where you're currently overgiving. Not in some abstract sense. Specifically, think of 3 recurring situations in your life where you consistently say yes, but you mean no. The request you resent before you've even agreed to it. The conversation that always leaves you feeling empty. The dynamic where you give and the other person takes, and somehow the math never balances. Write them down if you need to. Get them out of your head and onto something visible. You can't address what you haven't named. The second practice is what I call the clean no. Not a no buried in 3 paragraphs of explanation. Not a no preceded by, "I'm so sorry but," and followed by an alternative solution designed to make the other person feel better about your refusal. Just a clean, calm, direct no. Or, if the situation calls for more, one sentence that explains your reason without seeking permission for it. "That doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that. I need to pass on this one." That's it, nothing more. The discomfort you feel after saying it. The urge to fill the silence, to soften it, to walk it back just enough to relieve the tension. That discomfort is the work. Sit in it. It passes faster than you think. And every time you let it pass without flinching, you build something in yourself that cannot be faked. The third practice is consistency. A boundary that only holds when you're rested and feeling strong is not a boundary. It's a preference. Boundaries earn respect only when they're maintained, especially in the moments when it's hard, when the other person pushes back, when the easier path is to cave. Just this once. Just this once is how the whole thing unravels. You don't need to be harsh about this. You don't need to be cold. The most powerful thing you can do is hold your line warmly, with genuine care for the other person and complete clarity about what you will and won't accept. Those 2 things can coexist. In fact, the combination of them is exactly what people find so disarming about someone who has truly mastered this. They're not aggressive. They're not defensive. They're just clear. And that clarity, that unshakable sense of self that doesn't need the situation to validate it, is one of the most compelling things one human being can project toward another. Protect your energy. It's the source of everything magnetic in you. In Chapter 5, we go somewhere most people never think to look for confidence. Not in what you do more of, but in what you finally stop needing. Chapter 5. Stop performing. Most people think confidence is something you build by doing more. More achievements, more credentials, more social proof. More reps in the mirror telling yourself you're capable. More accomplishments stacked up until the pile is finally high enough that you feel justified walking into a room without apologizing for taking up space. That's not confidence. That's a performance of confidence. And the difference matters more than most people realize. Real confidence, the kind that actually draws people in, the kind that feels solid rather than brittle, isn't built by accumulation. It's built by subtraction. Specifically, by subtracting the need to prove yourself to anyone. Here's how you know you're performing, rather than simply being. You walk into a room and immediately scan it. Not to see who's there, to see who's watching. You say something and then immediately monitor the reaction, adjusting your next sentence based on whether it landed well. You laugh a beat too quickly at things that aren't that funny. You volunteer information about yourself that wasn't asked for. You over-explain decisions that nobody questioned. You add qualifiers to statements that didn't need them. This might be a stupid idea, I'm not sure if this is right, but softening your own words before anyone else has a chance to. All of this is performance. And it's exhausting, not just for you, for the people watching it. Because here's what other people actually experience when they're around someone who's performing confidence. They sense the effort. They feel the desperation underneath the polish. And it creates a subtle but persistent discomfort. The same discomfort you feel when you watch someone try too hard at a party. You don't dislike them, but you don't fully relax around them either. Because you can feel that they need something from you, and you're not sure you have it to give. Contrast that with the person who walks in and simply occupies their space. Speaks their mind without waiting for permission. Disagrees when they disagree, without making it a drama, accepts a compliment without deflecting, Holds silence comfortably rather than rushing to fill it. Doesn't need the room to confirm they belong there, because they already know it. That person is not doing more. They are needing less. That's the shift, from accumulating proof to releasing the need for it. Now, understanding this intellectually is one thing. Getting there is another, because the need for approval doesn't live in your logic. It lives in your nervous system, in patterns laid down long before you had any say in them. Most of us grew up in environments where approval was a resource that had to be earned, sometimes inconsistently, sometimes unpredictably. We learned to read the room. We learned to adjust. We learned that being liked was safer than being authentic. Those patterns don't dissolve because you've decided they're not serving you anymore. They dissolve through practice, through the repeated experience of being authentic and surviving it, of holding your position and discovering that the relationship didn't collapse, of letting silence land and finding that you're still okay on the other side of it. So here is what that practice looks like in real life. The first thing is to stop over-explaining. When you make a decision about your time, your opinion, your choices, give the reason once if you want to, then stop. The compulsion to keep going, to make sure the other person truly understands, to add one more layer of justification until you're certain they approve. That compulsion is the performance. Notice it, then stop talking. One reason or no reason, either is enough. The second practice is learning to receive without deflecting. When someone compliments you, says your work was good, tells you that something you did made a difference, what do? Most people immediately undercut it. Oh, it was nothing. I could have done better. So-and-so deserves more credit than me. This deflection feels like humility. It isn't. It's discomfort with being seen. And it sends a signal that you don't believe you're worth the good thing you're being offered. Try this instead. Take a breath. Say thank you. Let it land. Full stop. That's it. No performance of modesty. No rush to redistribute the credit. Just a clean, quiet receipt of something good. It will feel uncomfortable at first. That discomfort is the work. The third practice is what I call the evidence log. Every day, for 30 days, you write down 3 things you did that day that were genuinely good. Not impressive to anyone else, genuinely good by your own standard. The patient response when you wanted to snap. The work you completed even when you didn't feel like it. The boundary you held. The honest thing you said when lying would have been easier. You are not doing this to inflate your self-image. You're doing it to build an internal reference point, a quiet, private record of who you actually are when no one is watching. Because grounded confidence doesn't come from what others think of you. It comes from what you know about yourself. And you can't know it if you've never stopped to look. Over time, not in a week, but over months, these 3 practices together begin to dissolve the performance. Not because you've convinced yourself to feel confident, but because you've stopped giving your state away to circumstances that were never designed to hold it. You don't announce your worth. You demonstrate it, by needing nothing to prove it. That steadiness is what people feel when they're around you. Not your achievements, not your credentials, not your carefully managed presentation. The ease of someone who has stopped performing and started simply being. In Chapter 6, we take that ease into the hardest conversation most people will ever have. Not a conflict, not a negotiation, but the moment when someone else needs to feel seen, and you have to decide whether you're truly capable of giving that to them. Chapter 6. Use empathy as a weapon of connection. Most people think empathy is a soft skill, something you either have or you don't. A personality trait that belongs to the gentle, the intuitive, the emotionally gifted. Nice to have, but not exactly powerful. Not exactly the thing that gets you ahead, earns you respect, or makes people genuinely unable to forget you. That framing is completely wrong. Empathy, real empathy, not the performed version, is one of the most strategically powerful things one human being can offer another. Not because it's kind, because it's rare. Because in a world where almost everyone is waiting for their turn to speak, the person who actually listens, who makes another person feel genuinely seen, fully received, completely understood, becomes unforgettable in a way that no amount of charm or cleverness can manufacture. People don't remember what you said to them. They remember how you made them feel. And the feeling of being truly understood is one of the deepest hungers a human being has. Most people walk through entire weeks, sometimes entire months, without experiencing it even once. When someone gives it to them, they don't just like that person. They become loyal to them. They seek them out. They want to be around them in a way they can't quite explain. That pull, that magnetism, that's what empathy actually creates when you know how to use it. But here's the distinction that most people miss. There are two versions of listening. The first is listening to respond. You hear what someone says, and while they're still speaking, part of your brain is already formulating what you'll say next, shaping your reply, preparing your story, getting ready to contribute. This is what almost everyone does in almost every conversation. It's not malicious, it's just the default. And the person talking can feel it, not consciously, but in the way the conversation stays surface level, in the way they edit themselves as they speak, sensing that the full version of what they're feeling isn't quite welcome. The second version is listening to understand, where you're not preparing anything, where you're just receiving, tracking not only the words but the emotion underneath them, the thing they're circling around but haven't said directly yet. The feeling they're trying to communicate that language is only partially capturing. This kind of listening is almost physical in its quality. The other person feels it like warmth. Their shoulders drop, they go deeper. They say the real thing. That's the version that creates connection. And it requires you to give up something most people find genuinely difficult to release: your own agenda. For the duration of that conversation, you're not thinking about what you want to say. You're not managing how you come across. You're not waiting for a pause long enough to redirect the conversation towards something you find more interesting. You're just there, fully, for them. Here's the first practice. 2 seconds before you respond to anything someone has said, anything at all, but especially anything emotional, you wait 2 full seconds. You let the silence sit. You let what they said actually land in you before you open your mouth. 2 seconds is nothing in clock time. In conversational time, it's substantial enough to signal something. It says, "I'm not rushing past what you just told me. I actually received it." And that signal, more than almost anything else you could say, makes the other person feel heard. The second practice is naming the emotion rather than solving the problem. When someone shares something difficult, the instinct, especially for people who care, is to immediately move toward fixing, to offer solutions, reframes, silver linings, perspective. All of that can be valuable eventually, but it almost always comes too soon. Before the person feels heard, any attempt to fix them reads as a dismissal, as if you heard the problem but skipped past the feeling because the feeling was uncomfortable for you. Try this instead. Before you say anything else, name what you sense they're experiencing. That sounds genuinely exhausting. It makes sense that you'd feel that way. That's a hard position to be in. Simple, direct, without editorial. You're not analyzing them. You're not projecting. You're just reflecting back that you received not only what they said, but how it felt. When you get it right, when the label lands accurately, something visibly releases in the other person. Their whole demeanor shifts because they've been seen, and being seen is what they actually came for, whether they knew it or not. The third practice is the single deep question. In most conversations, the questions people ask are either reflexive, "Oh, really? That's interesting," or self-referential, using the other person's story as a springboard back to their own. The move here is different. After someone has shared something, you ask one question that goes deeper into their experience. Not a question that changes the subject. Not a question that introduces your perspective. A question that invites them to say more about the thing they just said. What was that like for you? What part of it has stayed with you? How long have you been carrying that? One question. Then you listen to the full answer before you say anything else. The conversation will go somewhere neither of you expected, and by the end of it, The other person will have said things they didn't plan to say. Not because you extracted it, but because you made it safe enough to go there. This is what strategic empathy actually looks like. Not soft, not passive. Intentional. Disciplined. The deliberate choice to be more interested in another person's inner world than in how you're being perceived in theirs. People leave conversations feeling one of two things. Either they feel more seen than when they arrived, or they feel more evaluated, more assessed, more like they performed for someone than connected with them. You control which one they feel, completely. Make them feel seen, every time, without exception. In Chapter 7, we move into the hardest test of everything you've built. The moment when pressure hits, when someone challenges you in public, and the world watches to see whether you'll hold or break. Chapter 7. Stay unshakable. There is a test that comes for everyone. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't give you time to prepare. It arrives in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday, in a meeting, in a conversation, in a moment you weren't bracing for. Someone challenges you publicly. Someone questions your work, your judgment, your character. Someone says something that hits so close to what you privately fear about yourself that your body responds before your mind has a chance to catch up. And in that moment, the version of you that you've been building, calm, grounded, present, gets tested in a way that no amount of quiet practice ever fully prepared you for. This is the chapter about what happens there. In the fire. Most people, when pressure hits that hard, do one of three things. They fight. Going defensive, sharp, loud, trying to win a battle that didn't need to be won. They flee. Going quiet, shrinking, laughing it off in a way that leaves them feeling diminished for days. Or they freeze, staying present in body while internally shutting down, giving the other person nothing but the unmistakable signal that something just landed. All three responses have one thing in common. The other person wins. Not because they were right, not because their challenge had merit, but because they got your state. They reached inside the situation and pulled something out of you. Your composure, your clarity, your presence. And now they're holding it and you're trying to function without it. This is what non-reactivity is actually about. Not about being cold. Not about pretending things don't affect you. It's about learning to feel the impact of something without letting that impact determine your next move. To be moved without being swept away. To hold your ground, not because you feel nothing, but because you've decided, in advance, in the quiet, before the test ever came, who you are going to be when it does. The most powerful person in any room is not the loudest one, it's the calmest one. Think about someone you know who has that quality. The person who, when attacked, doesn't shrink or snap. They just look at the other person steadily and say something measured. The person who can sit in an uncomfortable silence without needing to fill it. The person who receives criticism, even unfair criticism, and responds from a place so grounded that the attacker ends up looking small. That quality is almost impossible to fake and impossible to ignore. It commands respect the way nothing else can. It's not a natural gift. It's a trained response. Here's the truth about what happens when someone comes at you hard. The first sensation, that heat in your chest, the sudden tightening, the spike of adrenaline, that isn't weakness. That's just your nervous system doing its job. It's detecting a social threat and preparing you to respond. The signal itself is neutral. What matters is what you do with the 3 seconds that follow. 3 seconds. That's the window. In those 3 seconds, you have a choice that most people don't know they have. You can let the feeling carry you into reaction, which is fast, which feels satisfying for a moment, and which almost always costs you something you didn't mean to give away. Or you can let the feeling rise, acknowledge it internally, and then respond from somewhere behind it. Not from the heat, from the clarity underneath the heat. That second option is the one that makes you unshakable, and it is learnable. The first practice is what I call the observer shift. The moment you feel the spike, the moment someone says something that lands hard, you mentally take one step back from yourself. Not to dissociate, not to go numb, just to create enough distance that you're watching the situation rather than being fully swallowed by it. You become, for just a few seconds, an observer of your own experience. You notice there's a heat here, there's the urge to defend, there's the impulse to explain, or to go quiet, or to strike back. You see it, you don't feed it, you choose what comes next. The second practice is reframing criticism as information. When someone challenges you, whether the challenge is fair or not, the default reaction is to treat it as an attack, something to be repelled, deflected, survived. The shift is to treat it as data. Not, this person is trying to diminish me, but what, if anything, is actually true here? Sometimes the answer is nothing. The criticism is baseless, and knowing that clearly is enough to let it go without drama. Sometimes the answer is something. And if there's truth in it, you'd rather know. Either way, the frame of data rather than attack keeps you in a position of strength rather than reaction. The third practice is the 24-hour rule. Any response to something that charged your system, an email that made your face flush, a conversation that left you unsettled, a comment that you've replayed 3 times already, waits 24 hours before you act on it. Not because you're avoiding conflict, because reactions made in the first hour of a charged state are almost never your best thinking. 24 hours gives the adrenaline time to clear. It gives you access to the version of yourself that's actually equipped to handle it well. The fire will come. It always does. What you're building here, in this chapter, across this entire audiobook, is the person who walks into the fire and doesn't come out looking burned, not because they didn't feel it, because they had already decided, long before the test arrived, that no one was getting their state without their permission. The most powerful person in the room is always the calmest one. In Chapter 8, we bring everything together. Because the final layer of magnetism isn't a skill you can practice in isolation. It's the thing that makes all the other skills permanent. Chapter 8. Become it. Everything in this audiobook has been building to one question. Not whether you understand these ideas, not whether they resonate, or whether you found yourself nodding along, or whether something in chapters 1 through 7 made you think, yes, that's exactly what I've been missing. Understanding is easy. Resonance is cheap. The question is something harder. Are you going to become it? Because here's what separates the people who genuinely transform from the people who consume content about transformation and stay exactly the same. Consistency, not intensity, not motivation, not even talent or natural ability. The single variable that determines whether any of this actually changes your life is whether you show up for it. Quietly, repeatedly, without fanfare, on the days when it matters, and especially on the days when it doesn't. Magnetism is not a moment, it's a compounding. Think about the way a body changes through consistent training. No single workout builds strength. No single session creates the physique. What creates it is the accumulation of hundreds of ordinary sessions. Many of them unremarkable, many of them done without enthusiasm. Many of them completed simply because they were on the schedule and quitting was not an option. The transformation happens in the aggregate. It lives in the invisible work done when no one is watching and no one is clapping. Emotional mastery works the same way. You don't become grounded by having one good day. You don't build unshakable presence by reading about it. You don't earn the kind of calm that draws people in by deciding once to be calmer. You build it brick by brick. One pause trained, one boundary held, one moment of genuine presence given, one charged situation navigated without losing yourself, until those things stop being efforts and start being simply who you are. That is the destination. Not a new set of skills you occasionally apply, a new identity you inhabit consistently. But here's where most people stumble. They start strong. The first week, they're running the leak audit, holding the 5-second pause, putting the phone away, setting the clean boundary. They feel the difference. Other people feel the difference. Something is working, and then life does what life always does. It gets busy, gets hard, gets messy, and the practice slips. One day becomes 2 days, becomes a week. The identity they were building quietly erodes. And by the time they notice, they've drifted back to a version of themselves they were trying to leave behind. This is not a character flaw. It's a design flaw. The practice wasn't built to survive contact with real life. So here's how you build it to last. The first thing is what I call the emotional stack. A 10-minute daily ritual that consolidates everything from this audiobook into a single, repeatable practice. 3 minutes at the start of your day. You name your current emotional state honestly. Identify one situation today where you're likely to be triggered, and set one intention for how you want to show up in it. 3 minutes at the end of your day. You review how you actually showed up. Note one moment where you held your ground and one where you didn't, and decide what you'd do differently tomorrow. 4 minutes whenever you need a reset. 1 box breath, 1 observer shift, 1 question. Is this worth my state? Before you respond to anything charged. 10 minutes, every day. Not when you feel like it. Every day. That's the infrastructure. Everything else is built on top of it. The second practice is the weekly self-audit. Once a week. Sunday evening works well, or any quiet moment before the new week starts. You ask yourself one question. Was I the version of myself I respect this week? Not was I perfect, not did I execute flawlessly. Were the choices I made this week consistent with the person I said I was becoming? If yes, acknowledge it and continue. If no, identify the specific moment where you drifted. Not to punish yourself, but to understand the pattern clearly enough to interrupt it next time. Patterns don't change through willpower. They change through recognition, repeated often enough that the recognition itself becomes the interruption. The third practice is the identity lock. Every morning, before you do anything else, you say 3 sentences out loud. Not in your head. Out loud. Your voice matters here. It's a different kind of commitment than thought. The sentences are these. I am someone who responds, not reacts. I am someone who gives full presence to the people in front of me. I am someone who needs nothing to prove my worth. 3 sentences, 30 seconds, every single morning. This might feel strange at first. Say them anyway. Because what you're doing isn't positive thinking. You're not pretending to be something you're not. You're reminding yourself, before the day has a chance to pull you away from it, of the standard you've decided to hold. Identity doesn't harden through desire. It hardens through repetition, through the daily act of choosing it again. Over 90 days of this. The stack, the audit, the lock. Something shifts that cannot be faked and cannot be rushed. The pauses become automatic. The presence becomes natural. The calm under pressure stops being something you perform and starts being something you simply are. People around you will feel the change before you can fully articulate it. They'll trust you more, open to you more, gravitate toward you without knowing exactly why. That's when you'll understand what this audiobook was actually about. Not technique, not strategy, not a collection of skills to perform when it's convenient. It was about becoming someone whose inside matches their outside, whose calm is real, whose presence is genuine, whose magnetism doesn't require an audience because it isn't built for one. Don't become magnetic for a day. Become it for life. The most attractive version of you isn't the one who impresses. It's the one who no longer needs to. You made it. 60 minutes. 8 chapters. 1 through line. Before we close, I want to take 3 minutes to pull the thread together. Because the ideas in this audiobook only matter if they become something you actually use. Not a collection of interesting concepts you absorbed and forgot by Thursday. Something that changes how you move through the world, starting today. Here's the simplest version of everything we covered. See it, train it, become it. That's the whole map. Awareness alone doesn't create magnetism. Knowing that you leak anxiety before you open your mouth, that insight by itself changes nothing. Regulation alone doesn't create magnetism either. Training the pause, building presence, holding your ground. Those skills in isolation are just techniques, useful, but not transformative on their own. What creates magnetism is the combination, awareness feeding regulation. Regulation becoming identity, Identity showing up consistently, not on the days when you're well rested and nothing is hard, but on the ordinary Tuesdays when everything is pulling at you and you choose, anyway, to be the person you've decided to become. That's it. That's the whole thing. See it, train it, become it. Now, I want to give you something concrete to walk out of this with. Not a long list, not a 30-day program. 3 days, that's all I'm asking for. Day 1. Find your emotional leak. You've been carrying it for years without naming it. Maybe it's the anxiety you broadcast before you even speak. Maybe it's the monitoring, scanning every room for approval. Maybe it's the performance of confidence that everyone around you senses isn't quite real. Whatever yours is, find it today. Name it specifically. Write it down if you need to. Don't try to fix it yet. Just see it clearly. That act of honest seeing, without judgment, without rushing to correct, is already the beginning of everything. Day 2. Use the 5-second pause in at least 3 charged situations. A difficult email, a conversation that raises your temperature, a moment where the old version of you would have reacted immediately. Hold for 5 seconds. Notice what lives in that space. Write down how it felt, not what happened, how it felt to stay in the gap rather than give yourself away. You're building the muscle. 3 reps is enough to start. Day 3. Write your magnetic identity statement. 3 sentences beginning with the words, I am someone who, not who you wish you were, not who you're trying to become, who you are deciding to be right now going forward. Write them. Then stand in front of a mirror and read them out loud. Your own voice saying your own name back to yourself. There is something in that act that no amount of silent thinking can replicate. Do it anyway, especially if it feels strange. That's your next 72 hours, 3 days, 3 practices, 1 decision. And here's the last thing I want to leave you with. The most attractive version of you isn't the one who impresses. It's the one who doesn't need to. Start there. Everything else follows.